give it 2 more minutes. This thing is a pain in the ass. It's always scanning. Everyone's like, oh, what are we going to talk about? What's the agenda? So yeah, we're going to be talking about podcasts with the Darkish podcast with Shenton Douglas and Trenton Brigger, both researchers at Anthropic. We'll be looking at some Claude research agents, and I'm also going to be feeding back a little bit on my experiment with YouTube as well, and YouTube and film. So yeah, there's hopefully some interesting conversations to be had today. Yeah. Alright, let's make a start. I'm sure some people are going to join later. So this is the weekly AI Founders meeting. It's called AI Founders, but it is open to everyone, not just people who are technical founders. We sometimes get some researchers in. I did hear that there is a engineer from Meta on the prow somewhere here in Bali, so they may be dropping by. And we are sometimes joined by Alan, who is a machine learning engineer at Prevectus, a very smart guy, and also Billy as well, who was a senior engineer at Visa. So we have some technical knowledge in the room, but we also have some business people and some people who also just want to learn about AI as well. It is a meeting about the technology, less about the existential questions. So yeah, if we move too far into is AI going to destroy the world, I will try and rein this back in. And of course I will try and lean on people who have more technical expertise than I do to talk about some of the more technical aspects. So we try to keep the kind of level of conversation quite high and try and bring everybody along with us rather than sort of kind of lower it. So if there are things that you don't understand, feel free to put your hands up and we'll try and get everybody up to speed on what's happening, but you might hear a few technical terms thrown in there, so just say, Harry, what the hell are you talking about? And I will catch everybody up to speed. So we'll do an introduction round first. I am Harry Verity, tech journalist, used to write for The Guardian, for The Independent, Newsweek, a lot of publications, and I'm now doing AI consulting out of business with David, my friend and business partner. We run AI to the World. So we go and help businesses implement AI and help them understand it. So we currently have a proposal in the works that we are eagerly awaiting to go and help an events management company in Dubai. So we will see if they respond to it. So that should be very exciting. Do you want to go next, my man? Mr. Game Streamer.
We introduce ourselves.
Yeah.
I have a background in film, television production, as well as another business that does esports streaming and production for gaming tournaments and F1 racing. And yeah, I guess other stuff is around it. Okay, cool. Yeah,
Hi, I'm Dana Robinson, and I have a business that helps smaller business implement automation and AI.
Ah, love it. Good to have another AI automation expert here. Where should we go next? We should go to you.
Hi, I'm Karen. Don't be shocked by the name Karen. I'm nice.
You have to say that.
Yes, all the time.
Yeah.
I'm a real estate agent, and I'm just excited to be here.
Hi, I'm Andrea. I'm a film producer, and I'm just trying to learn how I can use AI to implement it into it.
Hi, my name is Bria. I'm an architecture designer, and I also use AI with a little bit more, well, not too much. But yeah.
And And we have our very own NAN expert, Lucien. Do you want
My name is Lucian,
Yeah.
and right now I'm doing I'm in the beta version of anything. And on the side I have like some an AI automation agency. So yeah.
I'm Hobbs, I'm from Egypt, I'm a product designer, and I have a microservice product that is a localization platform that localizes designs from English to Arabic and uses AI for translation.
My name is Claude. I'm from Ukraine. I'm an ex-software engineer. I quit my job about 6 months ago. Now I'm building my own stuff. So far I've built a couple of custom agents for businesses, and right now I'm building a SaaS product. But I'm still iterating on ideas. So yeah, I'm still open to partnership and new ideas.
Elizabeth? And sneaking in late there at the front, we have YouTube royalty himself, Chris the freelancer. Do you want to give yourself?
Hi, I'm Chris. I help Shopify sellers with their front-end web development needs, and I come to the AI Founders Meetup to stay on top of AI so it doesn't get on top of me.
And of course we have Sean as well. It wouldn't be an AI Founders meeting without Sean.
Oh, I'm just annoying.
AI news publisher.
So my name is Sean, and I'm a news publisher, and we extensively use AI in our business, and I really try and keep up to date with everything, and we're pretty much implementing stuff as soon as it is available. So there's heaps of stuff in the works at the moment, but I am a real advocate for Codex, which is my development platform of choice, and it just got updated this week with a whole pile of exciting new things, so I'm very excited about that.
Hey everyone, my name is Z. I had an AI platform that we sold, that we exited out of. It was voice agents back last year, and now I also help businesses scale with automations and helping on the online space again. Also open to collaboration.
Hi everybody, my name is Lenka. I've been building AI companions past year, but we just sold our IP, so currently shifting towards AI visuals, building products, always building products.
I am Sina. I am an ex-video game developer, and I run a publishing company where we use AI coding.
So video game publishing, can I ask, have you worked on, what video games have you worked on?
AAA, PC and console titles.
Okay. Piqued my interest, yeah.
What publishing do you do now?
Yeah.
Books.
Okay.
Oh, wow.
Are they all LLM generated?
Sorry?
Are they all LLM generated in publishing, or are they written by real people?
Varied.
Oh, varied. Okay, interesting.
Varies.
Wow. Harry didn't introduce himself as an author as well, so that's why he's...
Yeah, that's true.
That mixture, we can definitely.
Yeah. Yeah. David, do you want to get in?
Sure. I'm David Taylor. I've about 15 years in corporate telecoms, in software delivery and operational leadership positions mainly. Then I skipped all that and set up my own business and did digital marketing. And now I'm here in Bali, still digital marketing, but moved here to Philippines and Indonesia now, and working with Harry on Out of the World. Plus, I do some business mentorship with a reasonably sizable company. So keep myself very busy. I also want to have a chat to you because I've started working with, got back into software development with Codex and Claude, so I'm very keen.
Nice. One big change they made this week was you can have multiple answers, so you can go off and create 4 versions of the solution in parallel. It's like, wow, this is blowing my mind.
Okay, I'm not seeing that.
Yeah, this is crazy.
Hello. Yeah, how can you see? Should we go to the back row?
Hello, my name is Yanis. I'm from Paris. I'm IT project manager, and I need to get into AI to create a new business here.
Sure.
So, that's it.
Hi, my name is Jan. Frankly, I'm building an AI voice agent agency. Like C, just sold it 1 year before. We met before. So.
Sorry, my man, do you mind just moving a little bit back just so we catch the, don't catch the camera? Because we're trying to catch the screen as well. Thank you.
Yeah, so I think there's a market.
It's a good one.
And Vile, do you want to go next?
My name is Kevin. My background is strategic talent acquisition and strategic talent management. Come from Fortune 100. I cover 17 countries in Asia Pacific, and my interest in AI is as it relates to workforce and workforce decisions.
My name is Ross. I'm a content creator that does geopolitics. I'm kind of busy at the moment.
I'm
also run an agency basically looking at implementing AI in all stages of the content creation process. When I'm not.
You're not trying to, come up with,
Interesting.
My name is Luke from Australia. I work in sales and marketing for a Web3 gaming company and just always trying to keep up to date with AI.
You know, so many gamers here this week. I absolutely love it. So, this week we're going to talk about not very interesting things. We're probably going to do get a little bit technical when we dive into this podcast a little bit later. But first, I think some of you who came in previous weeks will know we have been talking a lot about AI and video. There have been some huge changes in there. We had a very high-level conversation when VO3 came out. Has everybody seen or heard of VO3 and knows what it is? With Mix as well. Mix actually worked on VO2, I believe, at Google DeepMind, and he has built his own AI text to video startup. So I did some experiments and thought about how could I streamline my YouTube shorts that we're currently pumping out at the moment to try and get some business for AI to the world, and obviously to turn me into a little bit of a thought leader. So I put together a little bit of a short and did an completely AI generated YouTube short last week. And my workflow was 11 labs for my voice. I had Claude generate the idea, and then I had Kling take a stock picture of me in a podcast studio and animate me, and then I had a lip sync model actually make the audio of me, the AI generated audio of me, sync with the video. And after a little bit of feedback, I gave it a little bit of trimming, and I posted it to YouTube. So let's see what the result was. How many views did it get compared to my other videos? And I'll play it as well, just for people who didn't see it last week, so you could see what's possible.
When you uploaded it, what did you answer for those questions?
It did not ask me.
Oh.
Really interesting. It did not ask me, and it doesn't seem
Maybe that's for the other format of video and not for shorts.
Shorts, yeah. There was no question at all, so we didn't fill it in. So this is the video, as you can see, 1.7k views. And if we look at my stats, some of the other videos that have gone out, that are like ones of me really in the podcast studio, 558, 1.7, 1.4k. So this is actually the second best performing video of all of them, which is interesting. So let's play it. Your employees are using ChatGPT wrong and it's costing you thousands. They're asking, write me an email instead of write a professional follow-up email to a client who's 30 days overdue. The more specific your prompt, the better your output. Train your team on proper prompting and watch productivity actually increase. Your employees are using chat. So yeah, that's kind of it. So the only thing that isn't AI generated is just the image of me. So I thought this was really interesting. I've also looked at HeyGen as well. So I feel like this is of a standard that I can start putting them out like that now. So I'm having my Rio, who David knows very well. He is putting these together for us now, so I don't have to have any involvement with this. I can literally have Claude just say, look at the ones that worked. This is who we're trying to target. Make the right ones. Gives me 20 ideas, 50 ideas. I pick the 20 best ones. Hand them over to Rio. He has the whole script, the whole caption, and we're gonna see what happens and ride this wave. And then I think the next step will be to look at long form as well. How could you do long form with this workflow? And one of the things I'm looking at is having like maybe a small, like a kind of like a mini short at the beginning to introduce it, and then having the rest of it as like voiceover, and then I just come back at the end, or maybe once in the middle as well. and seeing how that works as well. So yeah, I'm curious to see how well it does. And obviously you might ask, okay, what's the benefit of doing all this? Obviously the benefit is you can just completely hand this off to somebody else to make it. As somebody pointed out last week as well, you can make an NAN workflow so that you don't even need someone really managing it. You can just hit a button and it makes them immediately for you. So yeah, it's really interesting. And then the other benefit as well is, of course, the fact that you don't actually have to go to the studio to say these things. So if you're umming or erring, or somebody invites you on a podcast, and you really want to say a specific thing, but it doesn't quite fit in the podcast, it's kind of it doesn't really work, and those videos don't do very well. So you don't have to go and re-record it, spend that time. You can record exactly as you want to say, give out the knowledge that you want to say. So yeah, I'll just show you one that I made very quickly as well with HeyGen. Let me just grab that up.
Why didn't you use auto? What is the one that you used to use? The video generation software, auto run?
Well, I think I wanted. So yeah, that's a very interesting question. So there's two things. If you use HeyGen, which we'll see up, you obviously don't get that necessarily have the control that I guess you do with Kling. If you put all the elements together yourself, you have more control over them. If you do a done for you completely service, then obviously they're going to be taking care of all the different aspects, and you have to regenerate the whole thing from scratch. So that was, I suppose, in my mind. Are you talking about RunPod?
Yes, sorry, Runway ML.
Runway ML. So I believe Kling is better than Runway.
Okay.
Yeah, I think Kling at the moment is outperforming Runway.
And you can't use VO3 because it won't look like you.
Yeah, it won't look like me. So just so everyone understands, because you may have seen these viral videos of VO3, you'll notice when you see them, a lot of them are like news anchor vox pops, but if you look, the reporter is different in every clip, because you cannot get character consistency, and you cannot get audio consistency as well. So VO3 is amazing, and when they do eventually allow you to do that, and they do have an image to video model, it will be amazing, but as I understand it, they don't have that, just yet. So I imagine it will come, and Google's do have a studio feature, so that was my reasoning behind doing this. This is the HeyGen model. This is HeyGen 4. So you can see how this one pairs up. Get it up.
Alright. When it comes to VO, is like I heard that it's like what, $250 a month or something? And is that like the minimum you would have to pay to generate a single video?
No. So you can get it on. There's several options. You can get it on FAL. So FAL is the platform I always talk about, where you just load it up with credits and then you could just use them across all the different models you want. So on FAL, you have Flux, you have Kling, which is the Chinese model that I think is better than Runway. You have the lip syncs, VO3 and VO2 as well. So it's about $3, I think, per generation that you want to do.
Have you experimented with it?
I have, but also if you create an account on Google, or if you have a Google account, you can subscribe to like some subscription. It's like a lesser one. It's like $20 a month, and you get 10 free generations, I think. So you can experiment with it if you want to. I mean, it is impressive, but I think there's a limit on what you can make to it unless you're really, really clever with the images, because obviously every clip is like 8 to 10 seconds, and then they can't be consistent. You can't do any consistency between them. So
with Kling, you can do it even with different angles, right? The same character.
Yeah, Runway has character consistency, but what Runway and Kling don't have is the audio. What's so significant about VO is that it generates the video and the audio together, so you can have a character speaking, and you don't have to do this workflow that I've just done and put all the what I've done is I've taken cloned my voice, gone to the studio, cloned my voice, gone to Kling, put those together and then put those through a lip sync model. So it changes the way my mouth's moving. I prompted Kling for my mouth to move. That's all I've said to Kling essentially. You have to put it all together. With VO3, it does it for you, but you can't have any of the character consistency.
How do you think Marco, like I forget his Randall something, is the meme guy? How do you think he does it? Because he has like a shot of him at the start of every video. Is that what you're saying? You can't have that consistency of cloning yourself across every video?
Yeah. So there is a solution. So this is HeyGen. So this is what what I was experimenting with this week. HeyGen Avatar 4 has been out for a while, and I think this is pretty impressive. But the limitation on this might be the number of minutes that you can make. When I looked, it looked like you could only make 4 minutes of footage every month, even on their highest subscription, even if you've got an enterprise plan, which seems pretty crazy.
HeyGen.
Yeah,
you get unlimited.
Okay, can
once
you?
You have a paid plan.
Okay. But for what I looked at for their image, yeah. Okay.
I think it's when you get to like the API, they do that stuff.
Okay, that's good. Yeah. So this is what I meant.
Stop overthinking it. Start with one simple AI tool this week, or watch your market share disappear.
So this is.
Your eyes are very threatening. Like, if I don't do it, my stuff is really going to disappear.
It looks more engaging than the other, I think.
Yeah, this one I think is so it's going to be a bit of an experimentation. I feel like this could be better for longer form, for making that small little clips of with the longer form.
Can we see it again?
Yeah, you can. Yeah, so we can compare them side by side.
Stop overthinking it. Start with one simple AI tool this week, or watch your market share disappear.
Does the AI move if you blink or?
Is this where you put in the
So hang on a minute. So Riggs asked you a question. So
because I know you went through a bit of a process with this, right? You made your voice in 11 Labs. You went and recorded like 2 hours of audio.
Yep.
And then you made you had a podcast already, so you got that footage
Sure.
and then you made. That's right, you made it.
Yeah.
Is the voice here from your 11 Labs, or is this you made this as well?
This is 11 Labs voice. So this is not my voice. This is 11 Labs reading a script that Claude wrote.
Okay, so you wrote
Claude wrote the script, yeah.
And then you gave the script to HeyGen, and then you gave HeyGen your 11 Labs audio.
Yeah, absolutely.
And is that done in HeyGen, or did you set up a workflow?
No, this was done within HeyGen. So you can see it's still got the watermark on, so it's the pre-version. So we're comparing this.
Yeah.
So just to catch you up, because we were talking about before, I'd put the video out that I made last week on YouTube as a short.
Yeah.
And
did people notice?
No, we said it's the second best performing short.
That's
it got
great.
1.7k. So now this week we're doubling down, and I'm getting my assistant to just pump them out. Rio, who is just amazing at what he does. So we'll see what happens, right? But we didn't even have to tick a box to say it was AI generated. So
I think for long form you do when you load video.
Yes. So we'll see a long form. I've got some ideas for long form about how we can do it. So that will be the next stage. But
I wonder how that impacts the algorithm.
Yeah. Let's go to Benet. I can see she's dying to ask a
so
question.
maybe you shared the numbers before. Maybe I read it was a bit late.
Yeah.
But I could see on your account that you made like 1,700.
Yeah. Should we go back to the account and share the numbers so you can see?
Because last week you said like I don't know if it's going to perform as well as the other ones, and also if YouTube is going to see that it's AI made.
So we have answers to both those questions. So I'll show you now. So this, I put it up with feedback from Sean to trim it down, to take out some of, the really long sentence. So this is the video that Ben is talking about that we went over last week.
And it's costing you thousands. They're asking, write me an email instead of write a professional follow-up email to a client who's 30 days overdue. The more specific your prompt, the better your output. Train your team on proper prompting and watch productivity actually increase. Your employees are using ChatGPT wrong, it's costing you thousands. They're asking, write me an email.
So, to answer Benet's question, I have only 44 subscribers. I've just gained one new subscriber in the last few minutes. Ooh, maybe it's someone in this room, maybe it's organic, I don't know.
What's your hashtag game like? Are you really doing good description?
No hashtags, I think those days are over.
Really?
I apparently don't use them anymore. And I looked at all the other Alex Mosey and all the other creators, they don't use them.
Instagram hashtag kills you.
So don't use them anymore is the advice I got. So yeah, to answer Ben's question, this is the second best performing reel. If we go on to Creator Studio, we look at stats. And we look at how well where they are. We look at content, shorts, or analysis. I think it's analysis. Yeah, so you can see obviously I am a growing channel. So if we look at the content, some videos do well, some get 9 views, some get like 1,000. If you look at my the top shorts for the last few days. 3,701 impressions, and we go to views. You can see why your employees are scared of AI and how to fix it, got 1,798, and then your employees, the AI one, got 1,759. So it was my second best performing short of the 40 or so that we put out, I think. And then you can see below that, we've got 5 shorts that have got over 1,000, and then we've got 3 that are in the hundreds, and then the rest are all in the lower figures. So you can see it's one of the best performing. So to answer your question, that's what it performed amazingly, and we didn't have to say that it was AI generated. There was no box to tick when we uploaded it, and nobody seemed to notice or comment. So
Amazing.
So
it passed the pub test.
It did. So we will see what happens this week when we start pumping out more. Where this goes, does this? My sense is this will take off, and the reason I think that it will is just because if Claude is generating the ideas and the caption text and everything, and you've got a professional photo so that it looks like you're in a studio, like I do think that it's the ideas and the content that matters more than the sort of the delivery of it. So I suspect that this will go through the roof. Yeah.
May I ask, is there a reason you choose Claude instead of OpenAI?
Yeah, really good question. So anyone who's come to this meeting for a while knows I am a Claude fanboy, unashamed. I think Claude is better at copywriting than ChatGPT. It's just in general, I think even ever since Claude 3 came out, I just think it gives amazing results, far better than ChatGPT came. I think it sounds more newsy, more magazine-y, more casual, less like a kind of like a robot. Having said that, it does come down to the prompts. Sean is smiling at me there. So
I don't agree.
He doesn't agree with that.
Now with 4.1 on ChatGPT, I think it's a better writer.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Courses, right?
Yeah. Exactly. I mean, you can use Gemini Flash. There's some people who work with some of these lead generation agencies that generate their emails with 4.0 mini or 4.1 nano or something, because they say they micromanage it. So if you turn the temperature right down and you say, I want my first sentence to be this, and this, and my second sentence to be this, and this, my third sentence to be like this, then it doesn't really matter what model you're using, just so long as it adheres to your problem. And temperature, just to say, is like how much creativity you're giving the model. So if you turn the creativity temperature all the way down, then it will follow your instructions more closely, but it won't make any creative decisions. So you might get something back quite bland. So if you write a really comprehensive prompt that's very specific, that really boxes it in and says you need to do all of these things, sentence by sentence, maybe even word by word, and you turn the temperature right down, then you will get the output you want, but it won't deviate from there, and it will think very logically. If you want to give it its own decision-making power to do what you want, then you can turn the creativity on. So, yeah.
Even in the project, I think I'm right now I'm a bit disappointed with the project. They have really significantly reduced the context window. It was not like it used to be like, I mean, you could put in a bunch, even like 400 pages, but right now you could not do that. So right now I'm back to ChatGPT
Yeah, I have noticed that, but did you notice that they also rolled out a change last week where they essentially implemented RAG in their system, so they said, oh, you can implement 10 times the amount of project files. So I wonder if their thoughts are, we'll cut costs by reducing the context window and trying to push everybody towards putting all their files in a project, so that they just use RAG. They don't add them to the context window.
But Quen is also really doing good right now. I've used it a lot of times this week.
Okay, interesting. The Chinese model, right?
Yeah.
Quen, yeah. Is that open source?
Yeah, Quen. It's open source.
Yeah. Right.
Did you see that 11 Labs has already just this week come out with MCP support? So you could maybe generate some of your process all within Claude now instead of having to use a few different tools.
Yeah, it's interesting they've done that. I believe there was an unofficial one. There's been an unofficial one for a while that people have just built using their API. And so, yeah, you could actually have a WhatsApp and an 11 Labs MCP, and you can say, okay, answer my text message in voice note with the voice of Morgan Freeman, if you so.
But writing the script and recording it and getting back the file could all be done in Claude now.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's incredible. Yeah, interesting. Yeah, and I think ChatGPT, they still haven't really caught up with some of the MCP stuff. I mean, they seem to still be going down the route of integrations, is what I see.
Can I ask a question to the group? What's the best model for like coding? Because I've just been using ChatGPT 4.1, I think, is the standard default that comes in Copilot. But
do we have any developers in the room who can answer for you? I know what Sean's going to say. I know what David's going to say. Let's get some different opinions first. Yeah.
I think it's a bit depend, like what you're trying to do. A lot of the small stuff, like even the small model are well, and then like the bigger, it's a bit depends. And like sometimes you need to come up with better prompts. So it's a bit like trial of an error. I feel like some issues there, like I don't know, like one model perform well, and then it's just starts. I guess the main problem is just start to sometimes it doesn't listen to your prompts and so on, and sometimes just like switching.
Everybody says Claude. Sonnett.
Alright, I'll switch to that one then.
Yeah. So I also think a better answer to your question is it depends on what you're doing. So what's the best one for coding? It's kind of like
JavaScript.
Yeah.
Does that make it more specific?
I mean, yeah.
It's an experiment. I played around with coding over the last few years, so they both have strengths and weaknesses, really do. But sometimes I find that it's useful to have them both working. Like you get one opinion from one, and then you go, let's go to the other one and see if that does a better job. So I find it useful to do both. You got to experiment. There's no one answer. You might find that you end up using all of them to get your answer.
Yeah. Thank you.
All right, well, let's move on. So I wanted to raise and flag this podcast, which I think is really interesting. Get this up. Yeah. So if you have a question, do you mind just sharing with the whole group so everybody gets the benefit of the answer? And
so we don't get like a buzzer or something.
Yeah. Yeah. So if everybody could just, if you wouldn't mind not talking amongst yourselves, so because then I can't hear, and also we want everyone to get the benefit if you have some answer. So if you don't understand anything, just ask me and we will come you up. Yeah.
I want to raise a question. I wonder if anyone was using some of those to reason about it, to do like image reasoning and extracting information from images. Because I've been using Claude for a few months, and there's like a lot of models and so on. So I wonder if some people had some
So by image reasoning, what is your exact use case? What?
So the use case is actually I'm trying to extract as much information from an image, so it can be like searchable. So for example, let's say like take a picture of someone. So I want to like let's see sunglasses and your face and the color of your hair and so on. Try to get all of this, and then later on it can be searchable. So I'm trying to get like reasoning and metadata from the image.
Okay.
Some kind of like multimodal RAG, right?
Yeah, multimodal RAG is kind of, is that what you mean? Multimodal RAG?
Yeah. But like if you experiment with some, there's like a lot. So some people was working on similar use case or experimenting?
Yeah, sure. I think if there's anyone here working on this who wants to.
I've got something that I'm doing, which I'm reading a news article, then I'm generating an image, and then I'm sending that image off to GPT API and asking it to describe the image, and then trying to compare them to see whether it has achieved the image that I'm looking for. It's terrible.
That's the problem.
But I think Gemini is really good with multimodal writer now. I mean, we should give that a try. Gemini.
Okay, yeah.
I've used it like a couple of times, and I mean, it's good.
Okay. Have you guys familiar like more open source stuff, or been using anything like that? I'd say if you can try Bagel, it's like basically an open source version of ChatGPT. It's very, very powerful, and it's completely uncensored, so it's easier to Bagel.
Is it by Bydefance? Or
Actually, yes. Yeah, I think it is one of them.
We're going to be talking about some Bydefance stuff a little bit later. Let's move on and talk about this podcast, the Darkish podcast. So I highly recommend this. If anyone's deep into AI, this guy is
I want to skyrocket your YouTube channel's growth.
That was me.
They know what I want. This guy is incredibly smart, and he has a whole collection of really interesting guests on. This podcast is right up my street because I have an MA in history, and he often gets professors of history on to talk about grand strategy. And this week he had on Sholto Douglas and Trenton Bricken, who are researchers at Anthropic, to talk about AGI. So this was actually 3 weeks ago. Now the reason I wanted to flag it is this is obviously 2.5 hours long, and it is quite a high level podcast. They're talking about reinforcement learning and how the models actually work under the hood. But there is a lot of really, really interesting information here about what is actually going on at Anthropic behind the scenes and what AI researchers are thinking about. And one of the things Darkish kept coming back to quite a lot was like, okay, where are we going to be next year? And why aren't we at a phase yet where like a computer agent can just go and like book flights for you or do tasks for you? And the answers they had were very interesting. So they really said two things. One, which was that computer use is not a priority for Anthropic and a lot of the people doing these models. Do you want to maybe go out and ask to get some more chairs, if you can get some more chairs? Yeah. Oh, have you got a chair? Good. Yeah. So,
This is get the data from OpenAI, like focus of OpenAI.
hang on 1 minute. So, Lucian, you had a question. You said this is.
Yeah, I mean, this guy looks like a guy who has like 1 billion.
I think one of them used to work for DeepMind. Yeah, I think they did recently join Anthropic. Darkish, I think, is relatively fresh from college. I don't think he's done. Sort of joined a research lab. Yeah.
Sorry, what's the name of the podcast again?
This is called just Darkish Patel. So yeah, DWARKESH Patel. I think he calls it the Darkish podcast. So this is a really fascinating, in-depth conversation, and he talks about computer use. He says, okay, why haven't we got it yet? Because it could literally take away 40% of white-collar jobs, and will we get it next year? And the answers they said were quite interesting. First of all, they said there is a resource issue. So if you think about the amount of things that can be done with this technology, if you're working at a research lab, you need to you only have a limited amount of resources. And so they're not choosing not to devote it to computer use. They're instead choosing to focus most of their resources on code, on looking at Anthropic and looking at code and how we get to a stage where that is more automated. And one of the reasons for that, making the models better at code, is because obviously most of the people that work there are software developers. Most of the companies are Silicon Valley, so it's Silicon Valley focused. And so this is obviously going to be the biggest use case to those companies. Whereas if you think about some of the use cases for computer operations, computer use, like normal companies are going to be using those, everyday companies. So there's just a sort of not much priority to do that. The second thing they said, which I think was really interesting, is they said, quite rightly, the internet at the moment isn't very LLM friendly. If you think cookies, you think those captchas. So, I mean, they said if they ran the Anthropic's Claude's computer use sort of internally, I guess on a mocked up internet or with securities down, it worked perfectly, and it works really well. But if you put it into an environment with ads and cookies and captures, it soon breaks down. So I wonder whether this talk of sort of operator, and the reason we're not talking about it, and the reason it's going behind, is maybe they foresee that we will skip that stage and we will enter an era where we just have a sort of a computer operating system that is LLM focused. So what do I mean by that? I mean, you would just go in and when you load up your computer, you would just have Claude, you would just have ChatGPT, and whatever software you want, it writes it for you. If you want to do tasks, you literally talk through your voice or text. And perhaps, the very notion of the internet as we understand it, we might just skip that step and go towards that. That would make sense, rather than trying to make a something that runs over the top of it. And I think they raised one point, which is they said that if you were going to build this from scratch, would you architect the internet in the same way if you had LLMs from now? Like, no, you wouldn't. So, yeah, very interesting answer, I thought. Sean, did you want to?
It does seem stupid that it's taking screenshots every couple of seconds and trying to send it off to an LLM and asking it to describe it and then deciding where it's going to click, and it just seems like it's a very inefficient way of doing it right now with computer use.
Yeah. Does anyone else have any thoughts? Everyone, yeah.
Do you think they could do that? Like, I don't really have any tech knowledge of the side of it. Like, is it possible to do that? Like, if everyone was just working on getting what you're saying, like the screenshot, like the ChatGPT operator, like, is it possible, or is it just?
So what, to increase it? You mean to get to a level where it can just do all the tasks for you?
Yeah.
From what they were saying, yes, it is. They're just choosing not to allocate any resources to it. They're choosing to allocate instead more resources to improving the coding models and also to RL, to reinforcement learning. If you look at all the models that have come out in the last few weeks, and you look as a consumer and you look at, okay, how is my experience of using this improved? All of it is to do with these reasoning models that have come out, which is reinforcement learning, which is essentially you're building on top of the model. O3 is built on top of 4.0, and you're simply giving it a plan, and then you're feeding that plan back into the model, and you're giving it direction as to which plan is most likely to succeed.
This is a really, for provocative question. Is reinforcement and LLM, for HGI, and I mean, did you watch the video?
Yeah.
I mean, you know the answer, right?
They don't, as you can imagine, they don't really come to a conclusion. But they're talking about this. Well, the central question that Darkish asks is reinforcement learning which is essentially incremental small changes that to just make the models, the existing technology, even better than it already is that enough to get us to a point of AGI? And that's how they came to the discussion about computer use, where his idea of AGI is it's doing all your trips for you. It's just acting for you, booking flight trips, doing this, doing that. And so they seem very optimistic. The one thing I do love about Anthropic is when you listen to the researchers and you listen to Dario speak, they do seem very optimistic about the way the world is going to go. And they seem to think that if we carry on this path within a year, and I suppose if you think about it, like, where were we in November? If we were sat in this room in November and here we are in June, we didn't have, obviously, the model context protocol, but we also didn't have any deep research. We didn't have O3. This was a pre-DeepSeek world. And since that time, all of these models, O3, DeepSeek, O1, all of them are predicated on reinforcement learning, like small incremental changes. And the cost of those models is coming down. now you can do deep research for free on ChatGPT. Before it was you only got it if you were in the the highest tier of ChatGPT. Deep research is now embedded in Claude as well, and I can run those on my Pro subscription. It doesn't seem to be much of a limit on running those, and that's all they're all essentially reasoning models that are made powerful by reinforcement learning. So, yeah. Did anyone else have any thoughts on it?
I just had a question. When you're talking about reinforcement learning and big LLMs, you would know, that means that every user using it all the time is actually taking over the training from sort of computer web crawling. Is that what you're saying?
So, yeah, we'll have to get someone, I think, a bit more technical to explain it. But as I understand, there's a difference between reinforcement learning and what's called RLHF, which is reinforcement learning with human feedback. And that, I think, is where a human is correcting it. I think reinforcement learning is where it's essentially correcting itself. It's looking at the answer and is able to figure out for itself which one is the best path, and then using that data to essentially correct itself. So yeah.
It gives us options. Where with reinforcement learning and I mean, with the other one it's like a fixed answer. So they actually let you go through all these options.
Yeah. So I think that's correct. Is when you get 3 or 4 options and it says, do you want to pick which one is better? Yeah. That's RLHF, reinforcement learning with human feedback.
Yeah, but there is actually like a much more interesting use case of reinforcement learning in LLMs, other than human feedback. Is like this all the thinking. So reinforcement learning got unlocked in LLMs with these reasoning models. So before reasoning models, LLMs were just trying to generalize between everything they saw during training. But the reasoning models, this reasoning step is actually model trying to solve model tries to achieve a defined tries to solve a problem that it didn't see the solution before, and it can solve it in any way, even in a way that human didn't solve it before. So I think this is the most exciting reinforcement learning application in LLMs, and like compared to this.
I think essentially what you're doing, it's the planning aspect of it. So I think we've had this conversation before that you could essentially set up you could set up a far less sophisticated version of reinforcement learning if you set an agent to create you a plan in 10 different scenarios, evaluate which is the best one, and then you give that plan as context to the context window of your model before it goes away and actually does the task. But this is you could do in essence, I guess you could do a very.
This will be a simulation of reasoning process, but it won't be reinforcement learning at all.
Okay.
There is something quite exciting that happened maybe about 3 or 4 weeks ago with OpenAI. They have a new way of fine-tuning their APIs where you can, it's called reinforcement fine-tuning, which you can just provide it back the final version of the solution that you are using, and it will fine-tune the model based upon that, which is much easier than all the other ways that you would have to fine-tune things. So, I don't know, for me, I'm producing news articles, and here's the news article that it produces, and then my editor makes a few changes, and then I can feed that back into the reinforcement fine-tuning on OpenAI's API, and it will fine-tune the model for me. So that's a much simpler way than all the other previous ways of reinforcement learning that I've had to do in the past. It's a new-ish feature.
Steve, do you want to say?
Quick one about privacy, really, because if it's reinforced and you're learning it, you must remember from before. So is it taking your data and basically reinforce the belief system, incrementally learning from that, and then what happens to the data that you've got in?
Yeah, I don't know the answer to that question.
OpenAI is keeping 100% of everything you put in now, regardless of whether you delete it or not.
I think
everything is stored now.
I think that there is no privacy with these closed source models for sure. Either in the training data, we don't have any oversight on the training data itself, so we don't know what data they took. Did they take everybody's social media platforms?
So actually reinforcement learning is a solution to the privacy and copyright problem. Because with the reinforcement learning, AI can develop a new way to achieve the desired result without copying anybody. So this is the idea of reinforcement learning, that you define the end goal and AI figures out it's on its own without the need to copy existing solutions. So in some way it's actually a solution to this copyright dilemma.
Yeah.
I really understand this concern because if you want to do that, you still need to give some data, right? And this concern is really about this data to be used later.
Yeah. There's a wider question, data and privacy, and that is only really solved by cloning an open source model on your server, on your own server. I would suggest, and even then, that it's definitely a. Do you want to say something? Yeah.
I was just going to ask, what does it mean in terms of GDPR? If they're keeping everything, surely they can't do that with the European Union.
So this is a very, so what you're talking about is a very, as I understand it, for a very specific legal case, right? So is it it might be the New York Times lawsuit. One of the lawsuits against ChatGPT, they're arguing that basically they use their newspapers, unfairly without getting copyright for them to train their model, and the court ordered that ChatGPT must now retain everything on everyone, so that they can fundamentally evaluate it. I've said before, and I will say again, I think the only people that will benefit from these lawsuits are the lawyers themselves. I don't think a legal court is the right forum to decide this, and I cannot see a judge being like, okay, we're gonna basically subpoena all of the data and the information that's in OpenAI's models, and then a jury or a judge being able to actually look at that and decode it and understand it and be able to decide from that. There's only a handful of domain experts. It would take them so long to figure that out. So I see these lawsuits as kind of frivolous, and I think that obviously copyright law needs to be amended in some way for the AI age. And I think that's what's going on here. Yeah.
Do you remember when Apple was suing Samsung, but they were suing them about the iPhone 4 or something, and we'd already moved on to the iPhone 8, and it's just going to be so far behind these lawsuits that it just won't be relevant by the time they decide.
Yeah, I mean, this case was going on last year, and it's still going on. And if you think about how far the technology has moved on, if you think about how far the conversation has moved on and how quickly the conversation moves, courts move very, very slowly. So as Sean says, I don't know where this would be. So I think from a privacy point of view, again, my argument is I understand why companies are hesitant. There was definitely a case that I read of somebody making a LinkedIn post, I guess designed to shock people, of how HubSpot had integrated with ChatGPT's deep research feature. And then he was saying, well, you might think this is cool, but if you're some marketing guru or some person, some AI automations expert who's implemented this in a company, you've then just exposed, all of that company's data to ChatGPT. I see both sides of it. I see that side, but also I see the benefits of having a deep research model go over your, all of your company files. I think it's just incredible. So I don't know.
To just give us some context on my last project contract, basically we weren't allowed to use ChatGPT, Perplexity, and things like that. So they had their own internal, say, Accenture chat whatever, and you had to use the own company's internal intranet to ask any questions relating to the client, because they didn't want any client-sensitive information going out online. So I think companies are taking it seriously already, especially when NDAs in place. So we had to use their own internal LLMs closed on a closed loop.
Yeah. Can I ask you what model they were using?
It was based on ChatGPT because it was like the consulting company, then GPT or whatever. So they kind of Llama or something like that, maybe just as an offline model, and it went to the company's own internet. So you had to have the VPN into their network or a closed system basically. They weren't allowed to use.
So it was like Llama.
Llama kind of thing, like an offline thing within their data center cluster. So it couldn't go out to the public, so that information couldn't get leached or breached to the outside world, so you couldn't upload documents or anything like that. It didn't go out the company domain, their laptops were encrypted and all that kind of stuff. That's how seriously they were taking it.
Compliance is 70 to 80% of what you do if you're doing this AI implementation for really large conglomerates. So it's a big deal. So just to finish off, what this podcast was talking about, they go into talking about some really, really interesting things, some papers, Dario's vision for how AI is going, and asking the question, how soon are we going to have fully autonomous agents? They also talk about a scratch pad, which is, they define that as a sort of the area where the LLM sort of goes to think and reason. And you'll notice he's wearing a t-shirt which says intuitability. I can't say this word. He's essentially looking at the LLMs after the fact and trying to understand how they've got to the answers that they've got, because trying to understand the algorithm is essentially. So
you said in the beginning, it's like a black box, because essentially we don't understand really what's happening inside. It's kind of just like input and output.
Yeah, it's a very important thing. I think, as I understand it, is you see the answers that it's got to, but you don't necessarily understand all the time why it's made the decisions that it has done. Which is super fascinating, right? And they said that, for instance, apparently, I think they said Claude 3 Opus is really mindful of animal welfare. But for some reason Claude 4 Sonnett is not. So Claude 4 Opus would always his answers would always be geared towards trying to protect the animals, but for some reason Claude 3 Sonnett doesn't seem to care as much. And they also talk about some ways of jailbreaking, how they went around jailbreaking it in some really, really smart ways, and how they got around it. So it's well worth watching, or indeed summarising and looking for those little clips that you think interest you. But I think if you want to understand AI, this is a really good starting point. Let's move on to another story that has interested me. So let's talk about the Claude Research Agent. So Anthropic have set out a blueprint for Claude Research Agent using multiple AI agents in parallel. So this is kind of like how they would go about doing kind of research. So they've published technical details behind its new Claude Research Agent, which uses a multi-agent approach to speed up and improve complex searches. The system relies on a lead agent that analyzes user prompts, devises a strategy, and then launches several specialized sub-agents to search for information in parallel. This setup allows the agent to process more complex queries faster and more thoroughly than a single agent could. In Anthropic's internal test, the multi-agent system outperformed standalone Claude Opus 4 agent by 90.2%. Again, it's really interesting that, if you put a whole series of Sonnets together, they outperform one Opus, even though Opus is a bigger model. Anthropic evaluates outputs using an LM as a judge, scoring results for factual accuracy, score quality, and tool use. A method they say is more reliable and efficient than traditional evaluation techniques. The approach positions LLMs as meta tools for managing other AI systems. So it's asynchronous execution. So I believe that this is talking about the deep research model that exists on Claude already and how they're doing it. If anyone's used that, it is exceptionally powerful. It will look for 10 minutes, and it was scoured like 321 sources, I think, when I wanted information. If you're ever in front of a client and you have sort of client research, we used it, David and I used it on a proposal for a client, and it looked at everything that it could find on that client, and it was on the website, and then that informed the proposal that we wrote. So really useful to do that when you're in a meeting, I think, to just get the TLDR of what's going on. But this is obviously a agent framework essentially, and so you can see how these agent frameworks that you could technically have perhaps set this up on NAN or something, are now being put together in a sort of more professional way. So it's really cool. So we're going to jump back to video, my favourite topic. Well, it's good we've got so many graphic designers here. So Bydefance have released, so everyone familiar, Bydefance is the parent company of TikTok. They've got Seedance 1.0, and the Decoder reports it's trading blows with Google's VO3. So I'm really impressed by what's come out of China with AI and video. And I find it interesting that increasingly I'm using Kling for my models, and I find even Kling 2.1 to be just as good as VO really in what it can do. And so now we've got Seedance 1.0, and it outperforms existing models in several areas, including how well it performs. So we've got it has text to video, and crucially it has image to video as well, beating out competitors like Google's VO3. Now I don't know if it can actually do the image, the voice as well, the voice on the image. Let's have a look at some of its outputs, and we can see for ourselves what it can do. So, what? Yeah, it's alright. It's alright.
Could it generate audio?
I don't believe. It doesn't. I don't believe. The clips went through several rounds of cleaning to remove features like logos, subtitles, or violent content. Both automated and manual annotation added detailed descriptions. Seedance's 1.0 training process happened in several stages. So it learned from a broad set of images and video data, and then it was adapted specifically for image to video tasks.
And the prompts are fairly simple, right?
Yeah.
So I'm just thinking, before you showed those videos that you posted on YouTube, and you're thinking of like a longer form video. So how do you think this would work to create the meat of the video? As I said, put a lip sync version in the beginning, and then end it with a lip sync. But I feel like here can create more of like diagrams and stuff for the meat of the video.
That will be interesting. I'm not sure how well it can do text for diagrams. Very interesting question to consider that. I'm definitely going to give that a go. Sean shared something with me just after I put this together, so we'll probably cover it next week, so we didn't try and rush around. But Manus have released a agent to do these kind of videos. So essentially scripts them, and you tell it what it wants, and it makes them. So I wonder whether
it's everything in one place.
Yeah.
I haven't seen anywhere else.
Yeah.
It's an agent that does it all. Manus.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Now, it's a very good point. Could this help with some of the footage in between for doing diagrams? another project that I am working on, my sort of weekend project, is Sean said, I am an author. I publish books. So I'm in the final stages of finishing up the audio book of my next book. I'm going to put it out on Spotify, and I'm using social media to put out small little reels of all the characters. So I've created all the characters. I've now created all the voices for all the characters as well, and I will demo it here when I finish it. But it will blow your mind, like how much they are like what is in my head, because you can use AI to create the voices. So we're reaching this point where there is like literally no boundaries to creativity, and I do think if you really push the technology that exists at the moment to its absolute limits, you can do you could make small little movies with it. You can create characters, and you can put what's in your head on paper. Yeah.
I guess this is kind of an existential question, but like, how long do you think it will be before this kind of takes over like content creation itself? Like, instead of having a TikTok algorithm where it kind of knows you a bit, instead of like finding the best content for you, it will just create it. Like, I really like Lord of the Rings, so I don't think I can just pull up a like Lord of the Rings fourth film out of nowhere for you or something like that.
Yeah,
how far away is that?
I mean, we are definitely heading in that direction. I mean, what you said, create a fourth Lord of the Rings film. It is possible to come up with the idea and to write a fourth Lord of the Rings book. You just give those three books to the Claude project. Now it's got a larger rag, and if you prompt it well enough, it's going to come up with some ideas for you. You need to guide it, but the idea is there. I mean, you could start making it yourself once you've got the idea and you've got the extra characters. You could take the iconography that already exists from the films, and you could start making small little videos from them and making a trailer of it. So,
how long do you think? Sorry to interrupt. How long do you think it will be before that level of stuff is available? Is it because like as a content creator, is that
well, obviously, first of all, it's important to say, I don't know. Yeah, and only if you ask Mix, he would have a better understanding of that because he's worked on VO2. I would say look where we were a year ago. There's that meme. Has everyone seen that meme of Will Smith eating spaghetti?
Yes.
To demonstrate, how far we've come. If you ask Will Smith eating spaghetti now, it's a lot more powerful. So where will we be in 1 year? Clearly the direction of travel is video. Clearly the next step is going to be VO3 allowing you to do image to video, and then eventually getting to do consistent video. You've seen what I put up with the images. Then all you need to do is string those together with a content creation system that comes up with ideas that learns on views.
Do you think that it will be kind of like the content creators that exist now that kind of profit from it, or do you think it will kind of just be anyone? Do you think like the people that own the existing assets?
I do think that AI puts the best people on steroids.
I just think these TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, they're paying content creators right now. In the end, they're going to want to skip that expense. They're going to want to generate that stuff directly for the user and not pay you anything for it. So over time, the percentage of content on YouTube that you watch will be more and more and more generated by YouTube and not by a content creator. Just for you, exactly the way you like it.
But I can't see us ever moving away from a time where individuals put out some kind of content. Because if you think about it, we had Chris is sort of a big YouTuber, and you've done travel videos, right, and digital nomad stuff. So,
you blow a lot of smoke up my ass.
Yeah,
I've done videos.
You I can't I feel like a lot of that is predicated on relationship. It's predicated on you building a relationship with someone because you are a real person. I wonder whether if we move to just purely AI generated stuff, whether that would go away. I can't see that it would.
It's hard to tell because you could write the script and then just the AI avatar of you could say it and then it still seems authentic if the video is on point, or you could train it with your tics or how often you blink and all that sort of stuff. So I think that it's probably gonna be indistinguishable. And they can artificially replicate authenticity. Probably.
Well,
Seems that way.
maybe Harry, like when you have that popular short video, like how long did you hang on to it before you let it go? I mean, that's really the question, right?
I mean, you mean how much editing did I do before I put it out?
No, I mean you like I don't think you just shut your eyes and like write something and let it out, right? I mean you put your brand on it in some way, even if that wasn't actually you speaking, right? That was just your
Yeah, I mean, it's important to note that didn't come about that did not come about by me just saying to Claude, write me a viral YouTube script, right? Writing that does not equal what you saw, right? It comes from me telling it context about my business, me telling it context about what I wanted to achieve, me choosing the YouTubers that I liked or that I wanted to base it on, the Claude doing some research on the internet, coming back, giving me some script ideas, me choosing which one I like best, and then me and Claude refining it together, and then obviously it went out and went into to production. And obviously after the videos made it, I then trimmed it myself, and I showed it to you guys here yesterday, and people had some thoughts on it, and I made some amendments to it. So I got real life feedback as well. So all of those steps still happened in the process.
And you said that was your second most successful ever?
Yes, yeah. So far, I mean, I have 44 subscribers, so I think 1.7k views for a 44 sub channel is pretty good. Yeah.
Have we talked more about Suno and music generation since last year? Because when we looked at that in one of the sessions last year, it was very good at creating cheesy tunes that you might hear on the radio. So it felt like the cheesy top 40 stuff will be automated, but it didn't do well at creating really unique sounds. And so we'll still need sound designers and producers to create stuff that doesn't sound so cookie cutter.
Yeah. So we're going to come on to talking about music generation in another session. There have been some changes in it. The short answer to that question is that they are completely bogged down at the moment by lawsuits from the big music companies who are Universal, and all the big studios are taking them to task, and obviously fighting those cases is draining their budget significantly, and a lot of them have had layoffs. So they've kind of hit a brick wall with that. And unlike OpenAI, they don't, music companies are very litigious. Newspapers have less of a budget, and OpenAI has a massive budget to fight this off, and OpenAI is a known company, right? If there was a lawsuit that basically said OpenAI now has to reveal all its training data or has to change its processes, this would be a big deal politically. If they said, and if it meant that ChatGPT was going to go bankrupt because they had to pay royalties to all the newspapers, it probably wouldn't come to pass because there would be enough public outcry about it, and it would affect enough people. Nobody really knows Suno or Udio enough for them to have that clout, I think, to be able to fight it. That's my take on what's going on with the music at the moment. Yeah.
So coming into the question of him, when imagine the day would come when you put Lord of the Rings, all the 3 books all together and make another movie, right?
Yeah.
Everything that we've seen is amazing, wow, awesome. When would we get bored of it? I mean, I feel already very saturated of amazing content. Every time I look at it, it's all amazing content. There is not one content that is not amazing anymore. So when would they get saturated, just literally just bored because everything is so amazing that there is it's just like the first Avatar, where we watch the first Avatar, wow, amazing. Now the second Avatar is good, but it's not amazing anymore.
I want to throw this question open to the game designers in the room and the creatives. How far have you seen the standards rise in what you produce because of AI?
I have an interesting answer for this actually. I don't know if any of you are familiar with an AI community called Showrunner, but they're basically like a closed beta that makes TV series based on prompts. So right now, I'm in it right now, I played around with it. But what I noticed after time, it's like I'm creating a personalized Netflix. So I guess to answer your question, it's going to start gearing more towards story being king, and you're going to be creating and crafting stories and worlds that look like Rick and Morty or South Park, or that's what the model gives. But it's just kind of like a good play session to see where I feel the next Netflix is going to be. So, yeah.
Do you think that, like, say how a celebrity like makes a product and it's like massive hype around that product, like if someone comes out with a fragrance, do you think it might be like certain celebrities come out with like a content series that generate through AI?
100%. Like,
and then everyone wants to watch that because it's like
if I'm
Jay-Z or something.
If you only get a good example, I think Ryan Reynolds is probably like the master of that. If you notice any business he touches, he pretty much sells it off after he's built it up. Because even right now, I personally, as a black man, I don't really know anything about sailboats. I'm now looking at probably like investing into it because him and Hugh Jackman were looking into doing it, and just seeing what he did with the Wexham brand for football. It was just kind of genius. Just comes in there, bought it for $2 million, and that's worth over like 100 or something like that now. In like just what, a year and a half? So celebrity always skills.
He was talking about Showrunner.xyz.
Yeah.
You go to the website and have a look. It's basically like a generated, customized, personalized Netflix for you on the fly. It's a bit annoying to use, but it's
the concept's good though.
I'm going to talk about how about your question about how is it going to get boring. I'm in the architecture field, and we see that what we create isn't new, isn't enough. So we create AI images to keep putting that bar, because sometimes what we create, we think it's impossible to create physically. So we have to keep getting better and better and better at thinking, creating more, and trying versus this person, architecture firm, or that person, or who just drew like Rick and Morty. We think we have to be up more and more every day. So I think it might get a little, downhill, but then it's gonna go back up because everybody's trying to fight for that spot or that image or that creativity. So I think it might fluctuate, but I think they'll still be.
You don't think it's gonna get boring at one point? Like there's so many like saturated, awesome stuff. At one point you say like everything's awesome. I don't know which one would I pay, but like let's say coming to the artist. If there's an artist who makes a movie, you know Hello the thing. It's all computer generated, and it doesn't feel like theater. It doesn't feel human anymore. And but if you go to a theater, it's like, oh, okay, there's a person there. If you slap him, he's gonna bleed or hurt. But here it's a part where I don't know when will you get like 3D printing. At the beginning was like literally like there's some product that you cannot make with CNC. Only with 3D printing you can make it. So it's amazing. But it reaches a point where it's like, yeah, it's amazing, but there's so many amazing stuff. But when will we get bored? So will we ever get bored, or will we get saturated? Like, okay, we just take everything for granted because we just think everything is AI.
I really think it might go back. Like, having go retro, go back, and I think that's what we're going back to. It's like not pretty much so futuristic, but we're going back to what we used to, about what nostalgia is, to create both and intertwine. But it's really hit or miss.
Just one thing, the smart money is on the AI, because one of the big movie producers cancelled a $800 million new build out of a film studio and stopped the release.
I think it was Christian LeBlanc was here a few weeks ago, and he said that you can see how busy Hollywood is by the number of how many studio time that's rented out, and he said you could see that had declined, I think by 25% or by quite a significant number. And so if you go by that analogy, obviously you can see the way the movie production is going. And Mix will talk about this when he's here, and we'll have a big deep dive into his software when it's up on Found. But obviously he's working very closely with Hollywood at the moment with that. So yeah, I want to talk about one more thing about this, which I think is sort of interesting. Is you'll notice that increasingly with the video models, a lot of what we're talking about are Chinese models. We're talking about Kling, now we're talking about Bydefance, and We're also talking about Huan, I think was mentioned at some point. So we are talking a lot about these Chinese models. But I suppose what we never hear about is, like, okay, so what is going on with China and AI? And I will point you into the direction of another episode of the Darkish podcast, which I just thought was really fascinating. Which is, he's talking here with more generally about Xi Jinping and what it's like in China, but he with Victor Xi. They're talking obviously about the debt crisis and the CC, but also about the CCP's views on AI, and what happens after Xi. And so it's really interesting because he probes the question of like who in the Politburo in the CCP is actually in charge of AI, and how skilled and how clued up are the Communist Party on AI, and what sort of safety mechanisms do they have in there to actually turn this off. Obviously, big thing with video is that the Chinese government is obviously pro-censorship, and they are a bit paranoid that this thing gets out of control and starts pumping out anti-Chinese propaganda, and that they lose control of it. And so his guest Victor Xi suggests that they do have some kind of switch-off mechanism for AI that the West doesn't have should everything go too far, which is quite interesting. Yeah.
But okay, so they're currently building that in, because I did see an article the other day where they turned off all the AI for some college exam. Yeah. So that's one precaution there.
Yeah. So because of their intranet system and their sort of way, so it poses the question: is this a competitive advantage or a disadvantage? Because obviously, if they do that, but the West has a different system and continues, and then they might sort of start to fall behind. So it's a really interesting paradigm that China has to think about, is that they're obviously thinking about internally and state control, but also wanting to progress and wanting to compete with the US. So again, another really long podcast, but fascinating to consider. If you come to this meeting a lot, you'll notice me more and more talking about Chinese video models, and I do think they are outperforming some of the US ones and the Google's ones.
So everybody's presenting the AI race like there's going to be a winner and a loser. Is it possible just the companies in China and the US will be pretty close to each other for the foreseeable future? Because you're showing me stuff that looks a lot like the better video generation of AI in the American companies too.
So you're saying, I'm framing this in terms of winner or loser, but you think that at the moment they're pretty much on par and they're just competing?
I don't know who's better, whatever that means is, but like I don't see anybody being left in the dust if that seems to be the fear on either side.
So my take is there was a moment when DeepSeek came out that was a sort of a real, like a wake-up call for America, and it aligned with the change of administration when Trump came into office for his second term. And obviously Trump is a lot more open. He's repealed Biden's AI Safety Act, and he's a lot more free market minded. And that moment saw a flurry of releases. And if you look at the last 6 months, if you really go back to November and you think about, okay, where are we in this space and what have we seen come out? MCP in November, then following DeepSeek we've had 01, then 03, now on 04 mini preview. Now I think we have 03 Pro that came out. We haven't covered that this week. And so you've seen these models come out, and there's a debate, I suppose, as to whether America was holding back and then this DeepSeek moment pushed them forward, or whether there was a concerted effort to try to catch up with China.
You've been watching it. Did you see a lot of the sort of self-censorship of the models coming off in the last 6 or 7 months?
I'm not. Yeah, that's definitely a reasonable conclusion, right? We've seen Grok come out, Grok 3, which now has an API, and that's uncensored. You can ask it for whatever ludicrous things you want to, and it will give you an answer. And since it has an API, you can use that for whatever purposes you want. You can build an NSFW chatbot and go with that if you want. I'm sure some people have. And we've definitely seen, Google obviously had their moment with what they did with the image generator. with the you'd ask it for the founding fathers, and it would sort of, or you'd ask it for Nazis, and it would give you sort of black Nazis. And obviously they, revoked that and changed that. So we have seen some of the censorship, I would say, move away, and we've seen them talk about it more openly as well. We've seen, I think, at one point, ChatGPT, someone came out and said it's too self-reflective. We need to moderate it. It's too. It's what's the word called? It's too sycophantic. It's agreeing with you too much.
Yeah.
So we've seen a shift for sure in these since November. So what, in the last 7 or 8 months? But I don't know whether you could put it down to just China. I wonder whether it comes down to the change of administration as well, or whether it's both factors put together.
I don't think China's leading on anything specifically now. There was a moment there where DeepSeek frightened everyone, but the Americans have pretty much caught up on any advantage that DeepSeek had.
Yeah. I'd also say that there is a lot of knowledge share between these companies as well. There's a lot of researchers that work across Asia as well. I think this was just like a blip that some hedge fund company had actually managed to do this on 7 million, and they'd sort of taken it in the podcast. They actually talk about this, the one with the 2 researchers from Anthropic. They say DeepSeek really sort of sat back and watched, and then managed to take advantage of a specific moment where all the sort of hard work had been done, and they could then come out and sort of build on top of that. I think Sean's point is well made. But they are competing. I think that's the point. They're not behind.
Fast follower.
Yeah. They are there with the technology. Yeah.
I want to introduce a different perspective. I think at the rate they're both going, it's kind of similar. But where I think, unfortunately, it's going to be DeepSeek going against China is that ideologies. They don't really care about laws, regulation, or where information is coming from. So they have a better training set that they can use no matter what. While if OpenAI did that and openly showed that it was just nothing but Disney stuff, Disney will sue them. China, as we see with China and our 100% authentic purses.
So I'm not sure about that for 2 reasons. First of all, I think the data I think DeepSeek's data is trained in English. I'm not sure that it's trained in Chinese because I don't think there's enough of the Chinese data to be able to get the same level of response. And I think that there are questions over ChatGPT's data, right, of what it actually is. We don't know what it is, but there is an assumption that it has been trained on copyrighted material, even if it's not. There was that famous interview with Myra, who was the one of the leadership at OpenAI, and they ask her, so has ChatGPT been trained on copyright? And she sort of pulls this face that nobody in an interview should ever pull this face, and sort of like, no. I think there were questions over the training data and the horse has kind of already bolted, right? If you've already trained everything on the internet, Google obviously owns YouTube, so it's assumed that the reason their video models are so good is that they're trained them on all of YouTube, where there is, of course, copyrighted material.
One thing that's quite important is the defence industry. So I just signed like a $200 million or $200 billion contract with the American defence industry. So that says to me that they're concerned about China got superior stuff on them, and then if they're obviously liaising with the Chinese military, they have a superior position. So I think that's where the concern is basically. That's why they're trying to outrun each other, and it's all about a lot of the stuff like watches and TVs. A lot of that technology come from the military and then it trickles down. So the chances are the Americans want to be superior in that space to have an edge over China.
Yeah.
I think that's a big thing.
Fair point. I mean, the military and AI is obviously something that I don't know much about, and it's not something that we really have much oversight on because, of course, a lot of it is classified. Yeah. Well, that is really the agenda for today. So, really talking about video models, I've led you in the way of the Darkish podcast, and we've talked, of course, a little bit about how there have been some small kind of upgrades to Claude with their deep research. They've talked about how they've done their deep research model. So I hope you found that interesting. Yeah, please. Yeah.
On the agenda, you were going to talk about Claude and Notion.
I was. You are absolutely right. I've forgotten about that actually. Yeah. So let me. I am going to talk about that actually. I'll give you 5 minutes just for you, Red, on Claude. Claude. So what I did today is I was asking Claude through MCP, could you design me like a Life OS system in Notion? So I was testing how good could it be to actually design a Notion page for you. So this is what it came up with, and you can tell me if you think it's good.
You've already got all your fitness data and things and your food data in Notion, right?
Mm-hmm. Already, yep. So this I thought was pretty good. So it's got sort of meal plans, today's priorities, fitness and health, AI to the world business, things that I need to do, my book, weekly progress, we're on week 24, quick navigation. It's not perfect, but for a first draft and good, I thought it was really good. And you can see here it's linked to my workout and sort of a diet. So am I sticking to this? What am I doing? So asparagus tonight for dinner.
Okay.
So you asked the question, how do you interact with it? So what I did was I set up a work. So obviously I have Claude integrated with Notion through MCP. So I asked it first of all to give me a review of all my pages and said, look, they're a mess. So I'm trying to figure it out a little bit. I've got lots of sort of random pages. Some of those where I've asked Claude to just go away and find out about certain things. And it has just made one page. And so I went and looked at everything, and it came back to me.
It looked in your Notion?
Yes, everything. Yeah. All the pages that were in there, and I said, okay, help me sort this out. This is a mess. What do I do? AI, help me. And it gave me a plan, and I said one of the things I want is like a Life OS system. I want a home page every day that I can just go on, and it's updated automatically. And it says today's Tuesday, it's this week. This is what you need to eat today. This is what your program is at the gym. This is your to-do list. And so it started to make it. It's not perfect. I had to go through and start add some functions and stuff in. But it shows you what you can do. I mean, I was impressed with it. It was color coded. It was good. So yeah, I mean, it's well worth looking at actually. Can you go into use Claude in Notion?
Because ChatGPT, like you mentioned, or OpenAI doesn't connect with Notion yet.
I believe. Does anyone know the answer to this? Does ChatGPT connect with Notion? I thought the
I think it does. Claude does.
Yeah, Claude does.
Do you use both, or do you just use Claude?
85 to 90% of stuff I use Claude.
Okay.
The 10% I use it for is mainly image generation or stuff where Claude has a limitation.
And you pay for Claude?
Yeah, and I don't ChatGPT.
Okay.
And I'm a sneaky boy, so if I want more than 5 deep researches on ChatGPT, I just go and make another account. I've got a burner account, so I get it.
Do you use paid version of Notion?
Do I use what?
Paid version of
No, I don't. I use the free version. Yeah, I use the free version. So yeah. It's interesting because obviously Notion has AI tools built into it, but obviously
they're not great.
Yeah. I think you'll get a better experience by integrating with Claude. Yeah. Also, remember with Claude you can make a project, so you can interact with Notion from a Claude project, so it can have all of your context and data and then help you put that into Notion. And vice versa, it can call it back out and use it as a database.
I ran out of, I don't know if this has happened to anyone, but today I ran out of space on a thread. I had like a business advisor thread in ChatGPT, and today, just now, it just maxed out, like I can't write anymore on that thread.
On ChatGPT?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's, it means you've reached the end of your context.
Well, it's so fucked up. That happens like
Yeah.
I'm always starting new threads because I want a distinct new version. So
yeah, fair enough.
So to answer this, you have several options.
Claude projects.
Claude projects. Use a different model that has a larger context window. So Gemini has 1 million. I think they're going for 2 million is their plan. So if it has a larger context window, it means you can feed it more information, essentially, before it burns out. And Claude's context model is quite slow. They also now on the enterprise plan have a 500k context window, but only on the enterprise plan if you're a business. So.
Yeah.
Did you see that Sky Reels version 2 had come out now, which is the unlimited length clip video generator? It's an open source model.
It's unlimited. I haven't heard of Sky Reels. Send it to me. Yeah, I want to see.
It uses a different approach, but yeah.
You said Sky Reels?
Sky Reels version 2.
And it's unlimited.
Yeah, it diffuses the video instead of I don't know what it.
Oh, okay.
is.
Interesting.
Chris, LLMs, what's the business model? It's just going to be freemium for life? Or are they just doing this now because they're in the beginning stages and they're going to monetize properly later on?
Well, so the business model of LLMs as they currently stand, like there's two aspects to it. There's the consumer model, which is where you pay a subscription.
Yeah.
And then there's the APIs, which is where if you build a business and you integrate ChatGPT into it, you pay it for every time you use it. So they're making money in those ways, and then
training on your data if you use it free.
Yeah.
So you're giving them everything.
They're going to use that data to make money.
Or they're going to train the next model on your data. So if you're not paying, you are the product, right?
Yeah.
But then the next model, might be really good. So you could argue that you paid for the next model. That's another way of looking at it.
But you're enabling your competitors with your business information if you use a free model with your proprietary business information.
But it is an interesting question. All right. Well, I hope you enjoyed this meetup. There is a WhatsApp group. We are going to try and stream it, but I need some additional help to help me stream it. I couldn't work it out how to.
Okay, no worries.
So I'm going to
find Europe soon. I don't want to miss them.
Yeah, we'll make sure you're linked in. Yeah. Thank you.
Can I give you a